Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Dave Percy. Our first graphic, of course, the hazardous weather graphic and all the action up here in the Fairbanks forecast zones. High surf advisory out for let's see, from 6 p.m. Monday. These comes out 6 p.m. Monday through Tuesday, and that's out also for the Yukon Delta coast and here, Norton Sound, east side there, southern coast of the Seward Peninsula, high surf advisory out. Also for St. Lawrence Island and the Bering Strait coast for long fetches southerly winds of anywhere from 40 to 60 miles per hour. And that's going to create high surf conditions in those areas. Again, these don't kick into effect until 6 p.m. Monday. And then the winter storm warning out here for the Noatak Valley into the northern Kobuk Valley there. That's out until tomorrow, until 6 a.m. Monday morning, and winter weather advisory here for the central and eastern, southeastern Brooks Range zones. That's out for tomorrow through Tuesday night, and then a wind advisory out for until 6 p.m. until noon tomorrow here for the eastern Alaska Range for those south winds that continue to gust 32, possibly as high as 50 miles per hour, especially around the Delta Junction area, but other passes as well there, the eastern range. And for tonight, I gotta go through the satellites first. Here's the a weak system coming northward with clouds kind of combined with moisture sliding northeastward here from the southwest part of the state, all converged, but didn't really result in anything. Light rain at times here along the North Gulf Coast throughout the day. Heaviest, of course, western Prince William Sound into the Portage Valley area. And even those amounts were under an inch today, with anywhere from 1/10 to maybe 1/3 of an inch falling. So lighter amounts, but still moisture feeding northward. You can see a pretty good break here to the south. And low center right there, southeast of Kodiak Island. Other than that, some good clearing here to the south of that. Sunshine over the central and southern southeast coast today resulted in temperatures up around 60 and temperatures in the 50s here in the Tanana Valley, or the lee side of the mountainous terrain in the eastern interior there, where you had a little bit more sun. Otherwise, lots of clouds in the north, lots of clouds to the west with this system swinging in. Really more of a wind producer and precipitation producer here. Winds gusting as high as 45 miles an hour up at Red Dog and 55 miles an hour earlier today as it swung in to Cape Newenham. Marshall, 40 mile an hour wind gusts. And precipitation, though, not all that heavy, generally less than 2/10 of an inch water equivalent. And got rain, gusts 40 miles an hour this afternoon at Golliva, and still some light snow going on at Nome. Mixed rain and snow at Tin City, and light rain over at Savunga today. So mild air pushing northward here on those southerly winds. Next big storm here to the west, that's going to bring storm force winds into the Aleutians later tonight, but already spreading rain up about 1/4 of an inch falling today so far at Adak, with increasing southeast winds and pressure falling rapidly. Otherwise, this trough here really pretty weak in the southern quadrant there. A little more precipitation, but still not all that much back here to the northwest. Heaviest amounts on the upslope areas of the DeLong Mountains, western Brooks Range there, but kind of really getting mixed in nature, especially during the afternoon hours up in this area. But Point Hope, Cape Lisburne, and a little bit of light snow at Point Lay, and that's about the holdout for the snow. And again, the sunshine here in the east, well, mostly cloudy in the east with a few areas of sun breaks this afternoon. For tonight, that trough pushes inland with the chance of showers along with it. Maybe some showers in western Cook Inlet or up closer to the western Alaska Range, possibly Denali in those areas. Still leftover moisture, got high pressure building in over the remnants of that moisture, that system coming to the north. So it kind of just puts a lid on it, and still kind of cloudy, showery conditions, but amounts will be light here along the North Gulf Coast. Dry for the Panhandle, and storm force winds along and ahead of this front, pushing moderate amounts of rain into the eastern Aleutians, into the Pribilofs, and that starts increasing along the southwest coast late tonight. Very intense 950 millibar low tracking north of the Aleutians there. You'll get that west wind, probably could see gusts 70 miles an hour out there on the south side of that thing when it pulls northward. Otherwise to the east, high pressure setting up here near the Panhandle. Another center, as I mentioned, the Gulf of Alaska. Stay mostly clear down to the south, variable clouds up to the north, and dry for the eastern interior, dry for the Arctic coast. Chance of snow here as that system weakens, not that much left with it, but still occasional snow tonight, western Arctic coast into the western Brooks Range area. Then we'll see tomorrow that it's another mostly sunny day across all of the southeast coast here, with temperatures anywhere from 55 to 62. And not too bad, because you should see some pretty good sunshine over the Copper River Basin. Weak front right through here will keep chance of showers. Again, pretty light though, but chance of moisture along that front. Actually, a chunk of moisture is going to push eastward here along that frontal boundary and definitely bring some precipitation, probably in the form of snow on the north side of that front, rain on the south side, south winds on the increase. Then it really tapers off here, just some scattered showers and sun breaks across the west-southwest interior into Bristol Bay. And that front, that band really narrowing, weakening here as it gets into the Alaska Peninsula. Stronger as you go north, though. Still got the gale force winds from the Yukon Delta coast up into the Bering Strait, and storm force winds here closer to the low center back to the west, getting maybe not quite to the Pribilofs. A couple of troughs moving eastward enhance the shower activity here, with the colder air dropping those snowfall levels back down to near sea level out over the western Aleutians. Otherwise, rain and snow showers with gusty west to southwest winds here, central Aleutians, and that's starting to push in toward the Fox Islands. Otherwise, the north slope should stay dry. And for Tuesday, another really nice day coming up for the central and southern interior, Tanana Valley there, all the way down Kodiak Island, mostly sunny. This front really weakening. At most, it'll just kick off a few isolated showers over Bristol Bay and widely scattered showers here farther to the north, and maybe areas of light rain or snow up to the northwest, but amounts will be quite light as it rolls into this ridge of high pressure, and mostly sunny over the northern and central southeast coast, but looks like some showers will be pulling northwestward, and could see those slip on into the Stewart and Metlakatla areas possibly Tuesday afternoon. Out to the west, that intense low crashes into the Russian Far East coastline there, and then begins to weaken as it pulls inland. So those winds stay, looks like gale force winds looking at that gradient for the St. Lawrence Island area into the Bering Strait. Lighter winds, but still a lot of showers or scattered showers in the form of rain or snow. For the Aleutians, up to the Pribilofs, as most of the action will be up to the north now. And moving on to the forecast lows for tonight out that way. Lower to mid-30s here for the west central Aleutians. Lower 20s, St. Lawrence Island. Freeze point for St. Paul. 30s, mid to upper there for the Alaska Peninsula. And 30s over the southwest interior. Teens on the Arctic coast. And lower to mid-30s, south central Alaska. Upper 30s for the southeast coast will warm into the mid to upper 50s, maybe lower 60s in some areas down there. Otherwise 50s or 40s and 50s here, Bristol Bay, right up into the upper Tanana Valley again, and then upper 20s to near 30 for the Brooks Range, upper 20s there for the Arctic coast. And your lows following morning, 10 to 15, eastern central Arctic coast, in the 30 to 35 degree range for the lows here from the northwest interior, upper 30s down toward Bristol Bay, back into the lower to mid 30s for the Alaska Peninsula. About the same for the Panhandle, and a little below freezing for much of south central Alaska. Will still warm the following day, Tuesday, into the upper 40s to lower 50s, 50s for the Tanana Valley.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather graphic for tomorrow morning. IFR across the Bering Sea right into the west coast here, northward through the Bering Strait to areas from Kivalina up to about Cape Lisburne. IFR off the Arctic coast. IFR here, Brooks Range, Koyukuk, western upper Yukon valleys. And marginal VFR over much of the western southern interior here. and into the northern panhandle, possibly to start. It's going to be early on. That's going to burn off in the afternoon there, with some lower conditions hanging just off the coast. IFR back into the southern coast of the Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island, VFR northeastern Bristol Bay, VFR northern Cook Inlet, Manuska Valley, Copper River Basin, up into the Tanana Valley there in the 40-mile country, and then back into the IFR and marginal conditions as you approach the Brooks Range. But north of the mountains, VFR, and a band of IFR here along the southwest coast to the Alaska Peninsula. And for the afternoon, for Tuesday morning, pardon me here, let me get back in sync. For Tuesday morning, IFR here, again, Kobuk Valley eastward to the border. Better conditions somewhat here north of the mountains and back to the IFR along the Arctic coast. Some VFR breaking out here over the Pribilof Islands down to Unalaska Island, otherwise marginal back to the west. IFR, southern Kodiak Island, and some of this IFR slipping into southern Cook Inlet, Kamishak Bay, and back into the southwest mountains. VFR, Prince William Sound, and most of the Copper River Basin. And for the southeast coast, you have some IFR along the south coast, and that kind of holds through the afternoon down south. Prince of Wales Island, Annette, Metlakatla, maybe Stewart. Otherwise to the north, good VFR. Right up northwestward into the southeast interior. IFR along and south of the Brooks Range. Marginal VFR in the north slope becoming IFR out toward the coast. VFR southeast bearing into Bristol, well, not much of Bristol Bay, mostly from Nunivak Island down to the peninsula. Otherwise marginal with a narrow band of IFR with a system out in the central Aleutians. Passes Hanatuvik, marginal VFR becoming VFR. Improving trend also in the forecast for Adigan as well. Lake Clark and Merrill, same sort of pattern through tomorrow. Marginal VFR, better conditions in narrow area VFR on the eastern Kuskokwim Valley. And for rainy, occasionally marginal, windy, possible marginal VFR again on the southern entrance. Otherwise, through the pass and into the valley, VFR. Isabel, marginal VFR early, becoming VFR, and Mentasta will be VFR all day long. Tanita, same forecast, good VFR. Portage, marginal VFR early, becoming VFR late in the morning through the afternoon. Chilcoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels 2,000 to 4,000 feet North Gulf Coast into the northern panhandle in a kind of a 2,000-foot pocket up here over the northeast interior. And we've got the surface tomorrow morning all the way up to the southern Brooks Range. And quite a surge of warm air northward here into the eastern Bering, 8,000 feet almost to St. Matthew Island, 2,000 feet up to the south coast of Norton Sound. Icing, narrowing band as that front edges in toward the coastline of some pretty good chances of seeing possibly some areas of considerable moderate rime here. And that becomes a little more widespread up here at Seward Peninsula into the northwest interior. Otherwise icing free to the east and some areas of mixed icing over the Aleutians. And for the jet stream, good upper level ridge, kind of a sharp ridge here, angling right up into the along the west coast there. But this strong jet, 140 knots with a big storm there, the upper level low with a big storm both at the surface and aloft over the western Bering. And we got west northwest, 100 knots coming through the northern interior, coming down across the panhandle, something like that out of the northeast southwest of the Queen Charlottes. Southerlies, 50 to 70 knots here along the coast with that big storm out west, turning west at 45 to 55 over the Aleutians, and lighter winds here over the southeast interior, but still pretty good 30 knots cutting across the Tanana Valley areas, and 20 to 25 knot winds along the coast of the Panhandle, 3,000 feet. Same thing, 20 to 25 knot winds coming around this high center, otherwise pretty light over toward the border, light winds southeast interior, and then the strong winds out west. Anywhere from 45 to 65 knots, westerlies turn south here. And for turbulence, quite an area of moderate chop, possibly areas of severe for the smaller aircraft here in the west. But expect a pretty bumpy ride here from the northwest, the long mountain areas, all the way down the Alaska Peninsula, out west to the Aleutians. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Welcome back to another edition of Alaska Weather Facts. I'm Dave Snider, and joining me today is Cindy Preller. She's the Tsunami Program Manager for Alaska Region's National Weather Service. And Cindy, we hear a lot about tsunamis in the news, probably a lot more than we used to, but let's remind everybody, what is a tsunami?
Thanks for having me, Dave.
Sure.
Tsunami is basically, it's really simple. It's just a disturbance in the water column. So the entire water column from the seafloor to the sea surface is disturbed by something major, usually a major earthquake. But it can also be a volcanic eruption, even an asteroid. Landslide is especially dangerous.
Okay, so if I'm sitting in my bathtub and I drop a bath toy, that could be a bathtub tsunami.
It is absolutely a bathtub tsunami.
Okay, very good. So Alaska is one of the states, or maybe the state, with the greatest amount of coastline. So tsunamis are a pretty major risk here in Alaska. Who is most at risk?
Yeah, Alaska is significant. We actually make most of the Pacific's tsunamis.
Wow, okay.
On the Aleutian Trench. And it's where the Pacific plate is subducting underneath the American plate. And we produce some very large, great quakes. And of course, the most at risk is the Aleutian Trench.
Okay.
But that extends into south central Alaska as well. They're at huge risk. And then southeast Alaska's risk is really mostly landslide focused.
Okay. Are there any places along the Alaskan coastline that don't have a tsunami risk, or at least a very, very low risk?
Absolutely. The Bering Sea's risk is very low, and the Arctic's risk is very low as well.
Okay, so when we're talking about tsunami dangers, those are places that need to be monitored, but probably not really.
No,
Not
I
a
mean,
big
I
deal.
won't say never.
Yeah, sure.
Because I know
You can't.
better.
Science knows better.
Right. So,
Very good.
near to never.
Okay. Well, let's just say you're on the coast anywhere in Alaska. What are warning signs that tsunami dangers are threatening you right now?
This is super important because Alaska's greatest risk, especially out on the Aleutians and South Central, is a near-field tsunami. And then, of
Okay.
course, the landslides in Southeast, it's even more intense because we
So
can't.
shorter warning time.
No warning time.
Okay.
The earthquake is the warning.
Okay.
And that is the most important thing for anybody to remember. The water can arrive in less than 2 minutes.
2 minutes, wow.
Yeah, at the National Tsunami Warning Center in Palmer, we need to get the warning out in 5 minutes. So for those near-field tsunamis, it's the earthquake is the warning. So
Okay.
if you feel shaking,
Okay.
and of course the first thing you do is drop, cover, and hold,
Right.
and you need to start counting
Okay.
slowly to 20.
The right way. How do you do that?
Oh, I teach kids to do it with their favorite things. So
Okay.
1 chocolate, 2 chocolate, 3 chocolate, but you
Chocolate's
can
good.
count anything you like.
Okay.
And if you're thinking of something happy, that helps.
Okay.
Especially helps kids, but it'll help your
So
psyche.
you don't speed up because you're getting stressed out. I see.
Right. It actually lowers your heart rate.
Interesting.
You know, so
Okay.
if you think of something you love and practice that. So you're in an earthquake, you're under the table, you're next to the ocean,
Okay.
right?
Right.
This is important if you're next to the ocean.
Okay.
If you're not next to the ocean, don't worry about it. Just stay in place under cover.
And you're talking about a mile, a quarter mile? What's close?
A mile, even a couple miles.
Okay.
You know, our rule of thumb used to be a mile inland was safe, but the last few tsunamis have taught us otherwise.
Okay.
So, yeah, you know, in Japan we had inundation up to 10 miles.
Right.
So,
Okay. And that was a big quake.
That was a big
So you
quake.
have a quake, you're counting slowly to 20.
to 20.
What's next?
And if you get to 20 and it's still shaking, you need to evacuate.
Okay.
And that is, that's scary.
Yeah.
Because you're
That's a big quake.
evacuating in a live event that's still shaking. You know, 1964 shook for 4.5 minutes. Indonesia shook for 12 minutes.
Wow. Right.
Japan, I think, shook for 6. I'm not sure of that, but it was long. Anyway, more
Right.
than 20 seconds.
And that's a sign of a very major earthquake, the worst.
Well, 20 seconds is a magnitude 7, so that's
Okay.
not the worst. But what a magnitude 7 can do is trigger a landslide.
Okay.
And those landslides might be a submarine landslide, so you won't see it, you won't hear it, you won't know it, and then the water's moving.
Okay.
So that's really, really, really dangerous. That's what happened in 64 first. Seward, Valdez, Whittier all had landslides first.
Okay. And when you're talking about the water is a warning sign too. What happens with the water that gives you a very easy visual sign that something's changing?
Not guaranteed. It might go out. It might go way out really fast enough to leave the fish behind. But that's not guaranteed. It might just be a fast flood instead.
Okay.
So either way, if it's acting like a super fast rising tide, faster than a tide should rise,
Right.
get out of there.
Okay.
And if it goes out really fast, get out of there.
Yeah.
You know, we lost a lot of lives because people will go check out the new tide pools or
Sure.
pick up fish or shells or, you know, so, and it should feel weird.
Right.
You know, it should be weird.
So pay attention to those natural warning signs and how you feel, because those are maybe the only clues you have.
Right, and you know, sound also. You can
Okay.
hear a tsunami. It'll sound like a roaring train, maybe.
Okay.
Or it might sound silent because the water's been pulled out.
Right.
And that's pretty weird. Imagine camping
Yeah.
at night
Yeah.
near the beach, and all of a sudden you don't hear the ocean anymore.
That would be different.
That would be weird.
Huh,
Yeah.
okay.
And then you also might hear blowing bubbles, and that's actually from the pressure that's blowing the air out from the sand grains, rock grains.
Interesting.
So if you hear blowing bubbles, that's a little weird.
Okay.
Or clinking rocks, you know, like a rain stick. So those are the sound signs. So the visual is rushing in or rushing out, and roaring especially.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it takes a lot of work to get people and keep people aware of what the tsunami warning signs are and what their risks are around Alaska. And there's a website that can help them do that. Where can they go online to get more information for their school, their home, their church, their business?
Oh, there's several. The National Tsunami Warning Center has a website as well, and the easiest way to look that up is just NTWC.
NTWC.
The
Okay.
URL is not intuitive at all.
Okay.
There's also ready.alaska.gov. The state of Alaska has a lot of helpful stuff. Preparedness kits. They have everything you need to get ready.
Okay.
And then for teachers and others, there's a wonderful curriculum called Alaska Tsunami Education Program.
Alaska Tsunami Education Program. Okay.
And that's AKwx.
AKwx. Okay, very good. Those are really good tips to get more information and search that out and help your own community stay safe with the threat of tsunamis around Alaska. Next time we come back and talk to you some more about the Tsunami Ready program and get more in depth and how people can learn more about the risks and what to do here in Alaska. So thank you for joining us today, Cindy. And next time on Alaska Weather Facts, more on tsunamis around Alaska. We'll see you next time.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Looking at today's sea ice analysis, not a lot different from yesterday there. Almost down to St. Matthew Island, but not going to make it. South wind's already rolling into the area there, so that over the next several days, this is definitely going to take a jog to the north. And for the southeast coast, north to northwest at 20 knots tomorrow. South coast, 15 knots out of the northwest for Clarence Strait. Northerlies 15 Stevens Passage, increase a little bit to 20 knots, Lynn Canal, northwest 20 on the north coast. And for Tuesday, we've got north 25, small craft advisories for northern Lynn Canal, 20 knots, Stevens Passage, all out of the north, 10 knots, pretty light for Clarence Strait, north-northwest 15 on the south coast, and north-northwest 15 to 20 on the north coast. Prince William Sound, a light wind day coming up there tomorrow, west at 10, not too bad for the North Gulf Coast as well, west 10 to 15, southeast 15 for the Barrens, small craft advisories, southeast 25 for Kamishak Bay, and southeast 10 to 20 for Cook Inlet, strongest south of the Forelands. And they'll swing around to the north, 10 to 15 knots for Cook Inlet on Tuesday, north 15 Kamishak Bay, and northwest at 25 for the Barren Islands, good for small craft advisories. Otherwise, the North Gulf Coast, west-northwest at 20, northwest 15 for Prince William Sound. Kodiak Island, south to southeast winds for the most part tomorrow, but only about 15 knots, these 3 to 8 feet. And then small craft advisory, Sitkinak to Castle Cape, southeast winds 25, and we got gales across the Alaska Peninsula, strongest on the Bering Sea side, up to 40 knots there, southeast 30 for Bristol Bay. And for Tuesday, Shelikof Strait, pretty light, mostly out of the south at 10, southwest 15, east side of the island. Southwest is Sitkinak, south 15, and the Alaska Peninsula, west-southwest 15 to 20, and south 15 for Bristol Bay. And for the Aleutians, eastern Fox Islands, good gales coming in tomorrow, especially for Unmak Island. 35 to 45 knot winds from the south-southwest, southwest 45 to 50 with the storm warnings on the north side of Adak and Atka Islands, and then west-southwest at 45 all the way out to Shimei and Attu. Outlook for Tuesday, those drop under gale force, southwest 30 knots here from the western into the central Aleutians, turning south though for Atka on over toward Unmak Island, and those winds coming down to 25 knots, 20 knot winds for Unalaska Island from the southwest. And the southwest coast tomorrow, 40 knot gales all along the coast, north and south of Nunivak Island, south 40 for the Pribilos, southeast 40 for the St. Matthew Island zone. St. Lawrence Island southeast, 35 knots, and even 30 knots there for Norton Sound. And the outlook for Tuesday, dropping off considerably here down to 20 knots on the south coast. Seas still 10 feet. Small craft advisories for the Permaloft, southerlies 25, increased to 35 knots. St. Matthew Island, and 25 to 30 knot winds there. Small craft advisories north side of Nunivak Island into the Bering Strait. And for the Arctic coast there, east side, west-southwest 15 to 20, strongest over toward Demarcation Point, Barter Island. Southwest 15 on the central coast, west side south at 15 knots. And then we've got 20 knot winds from Cape Thompson to Cape Beaufort in that zone there. And then south of Cape Thompson, here east 25, brisk wind advisories. And then for Tuesday, stronger brisk wind advisories south 30 knots from Wales all the way up to Cape Beaufort, and south 20 knots on the western coast. Brisk wind advisories for the central Arctic coast there, east 25 knots, falling back to 20 knots far down the coastline here, and then eventually to 15 knots in that far eastern zone. And looking at tonight's weather again, still showers, clouds here, but a lot lighter on the precip, more intermittent, more showery, but staying cloudy north Gulf Coast, dry for the Panhandle, dry eastern interior, some showers with this trough up to the north. Big storm coming into the Bering Sea with storm force and gale force winds. The main low center, 950 millibars, stays out west and tracks due north, so as this front pulls eastward, it's going to weaken. And you can see the narrowing band of rainfall with that, as well as the diminishing winds, stays a little better hung together up here in the northwest. So wind, rain, and snow and winter weather advisories, high surf advisories for the coastal areas as well. And the outlook for Tuesday, that low center tracks north, like many have done here this year, this winter season, into the Russian Far East and taking the heaviest precipitation and wind with it. Still kind of breezy and showery for the Aleutians, and more wind than rain for the Permaloft, but the winds aren't that bad, but a little stronger here up into the Bering Strait in the northwest. That front really washes out as it moves into the interior. Mostly sunny south central Alaska into the southeast interior.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.